Shalom, shalom to everyone on the call. We are going to get started here in the next 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to give everybody a little more time to come on the call, anybody that wants to join. We are going to be recording. And so if you have anybody that wants to log on or is trying to log on, just let me know. The chat room is open. There is no there's really no passcode to get on, but it's free for anybody that wants to come and hear a message tonight. Let's play one more song and we'll get started.
Shalom, Toda.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Let's see what we can play. Let's
I know sometimes the mountain's hard to climb. We walk by faith and all the times we're blind. It's working for my good is what they say, yeah. But I can't see with all that's in my way. Why bother? But when the diamond be without pressure, with the flowers even bloom, without a little rain, yeah. I hear you, and I can move, and if I want, I don't. 'Cause I give mountains to you. Yes, I give mountains to you. I give mountains to you. You can go higher, so you can go higher. I'm coming up, on the side of the mountain. I'm coming up, yeah. Coming up, hallelujah, on the side of the mountain.
They tell me that my thoughts are not your thoughts, ways are not your ways. Still I find it hard to say I trust you, and even though I know it's not my place, to the God that made the heaven, earth, and space, I need you. Help me make sense of all this pain. I'm encouraged by the testimony of those that overcame, but my heart aches for the single mom that's trying to maintain. She probably not able, she got that cane in her veins. It's like we build mountains with our own hands, and then we get mad at you cause we don't understand that it was us that strayed away, but still you had a plan to bring us back within your fold and keep us in your hand. I know these mountains you give us is only meant to take us higher, but we love the valley, so we pursue our own desires. It's a crying shame what we do to numb the pain. When there's power in your name, they hear the sick and hear the lame. It's like we fight against you like you ain't out here fighting for us. And all these trials and tribulations, giving the help grow us is hard. I know it is, especially when you're scared of heights. And every time you turn around, it's like you got another fight. So I pray the words I speak are food to curb the appetite. And when the morning comes, I hope you're there so we can share the light. Until then, I'll be sipping from the fountain. You found me on the rough side of the mountain. I'm gone.
Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom to all of my Hebrew brothers and sisters out there.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Good to see you. And to anybody out there in the YouTube world or that might be logging in later to hear this transcription, if you're not Hebrew, then I still greet you with the Hebrew words of peace. Shalom Aleichem.
Alaikum shalom.
And I wanted to give a special thanks to those of you that are my faithful few, as they say. I know we meet up lots of times a week, and we go over this stuff, this information, and we do our best to disseminate what we can disseminate from the written text, and that's a very important work that has to be done if we're going to live the truth. Is we have to pull the truth from the text. You know, so often the truth has been obscured, and we find ourselves, in a situation where we don't know what to believe. And there's so much out there that we're being bombarded with, that if you don't know where to look, if you don't have somebody to show you, if you don't have a guide on this journey, then you can find yourself lost, And so I learned from Israelite teachers and others, and I'm here to share with you all what I know, and hopefully we can walk this walk together. All right. We can walk this walk together. And that's something that I've been working on, for a while now, is trying to put out the information that I have and the things that I've researched and studied, so that people can hear it, and so that it can be shared as there's a record of it. The Bible says that the books will be sealed up until the time when the books shall be revealed. And we're in that period of that great revelation and awakening, as the Hebrews say, the ascension realm. We're no longer the descendants, because we're no longer going downward. Now we are the ascendants of Adam, because we're going upward and not downward. Hallelujah.
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 So I'm going to start in the normal fashion as we do, by raising the ark. And the ark is just an ancient recitation of scripture that implores the Creator to protect us on this journey that we're on.
Okay.
And so we all need protection, from the greatest to the weakest, from the smallest to the mightiest. We all need some kind of protection. And so, if you will, bear with me as we read this in the Hebrew, and then I'll read it in English for those that may not understand the Hebrew. So it's the text here that's highlighted. It says, Kuma Yahuwah, ve'afusu oivecha, ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha. Kuma Yahuwah, ve'afusu oivecha, ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha. And what this says in English is, rise up, as in the kumbaya, right? But not in the stand up, but to take action on our behalf. Take action on our behalf, Yahweh, the name of the Creator. And let your enemies be scattered. And let those that hate thee flee from before your face. Mi paneka, pane is the face. Let those that hate you flee from before your presence. And that's a mighty cry right there, That is a mighty that is I mean, I can imagine that would send chills up the spines of those enemies of Israel when they would call that out in battle, seeing full well what those Hebrew wanderers had done to Egypt, which was the mighty superpower, and what they did to Bashan, and what they did to the Amorites.
Mm.
The whole land was probably trembling in fear, you know? And here we are in 2024, and we find ourselves in Egypt again, Egypt with ships.
Mm.
And when people ask me, they say, well, how is this going to unfold? And I tell them, do you want to see how this captivity is going to unfold? Then go back to the original Egypt and look at what happened in the original Egypt. You know, those 10 plagues of Egypt, those were financial, institutional plagues. Yah crippled their financial institutions and their religious institutions and their philosophical institutions. He crippled their social and government institutions to the point that the last draw was the children of Israel looted the people, and then he drowned the army. It took Egypt 2,500 years to recover from what Yah had surmounted on them. 2,500 years. It wasn't until the Greeks and the Romans came that we started to see Egypt come back onto the scene. Those are those years of Cleopatra and all that stuff. So, but that's another lesson for another day. You know, I kind of diverge a little bit. Before we get started in this story here, I do want to give a few shout outs. I want to give a special shout out to all of my cohorts in the Glory to the Righteous Hebrew study course under the tutelage of Sarah Samakia. I'm anticipating those classes starting back soon. I also want to give a shout out to the Kingdom of Yaw, Texas jurisdiction, for which I am a member and affiliated, for also being, you know, close friends and support system for me when I need it. And I want to give a shout out to the African Union Region 6, which includes all of the people of African descent not currently on the African continent. They were very supportive. Ambassador Caroline Benjamin and others were very supportive. Dr. Macaulay were very supportive of me putting on this presentation about Black history as told from the standpoint of Africa, all right, a month of African history. I need to include that in my slide somewhere so that you guys can see the flyer that I made, so that way you know which so that you know which what am I trying to say? So that you know which flyer this is promoting. So let me go to it real quick so you can see the flyer. Here is the flyer right here. It says, celebrate Black excellence with the Ndiyabonga Foundation. This is also the fourth organization that I want to thank for sponsoring the work that I'm putting on here, the Ndiyabonga Foundation. Ndiyabonga is a Swahili word which means home, right? Because Africa is our home. So the Ndiyabonga Foundation, a month of African history, a special lectureship series. It says here, to discover a truth the world doesn't want you to know as we reveal the true identity of God's chosen people. Black History Month 2024, every Friday night in February, hosted by yours truly, the noble Yochanon bin Malahk, that's me. And part one today is the Semitic origins of the term Africa. And we're going to talk about some things and dealing with this. But last but not least, I would also like to thank this organization here at the bottom, which is called the Hebrew Israelites of Greater Houston. So I think I did all my plugins, right? I shouted out Glory to the Righteous Study Group, the Kingdom of Yah, Texas Jurisdiction, the African Union Region 6 Global. We talked about the Non-Binding Foundation and the Hebrew Israelites of Greater. So I paid all my bills. All right. I paid all my bills. And if I can be so bold, I wanted to do one more shout out, if I can, to well, let's one more shout out. We'll do one more shout out. This is for right here. This is my organization here. It's called Walk This Walk With Me. It's a premier event for Hebrews in the Houston area. But not just Hebrews, anybody is welcome to come out, and we find a nice park and we just walk and talk. And it's an event for the family. It's free. It's designed to promote outdoors activities, healthy moving. And so anybody, as we get ready for the new 2024 season, this will be coming out. You'll be seeing some flyers for this walk with me as we proceed. And last but not least, we have the Devarim HaKesed, Words of His Grace, sponsored by the Hebrew Israelites of Greater Houston. This is my Friday night class hosted by Yochanon and Malahk. So there's plenty of different ways to get this information out there, and I'm just doing my part to see that we get it done. So without much further ado, we're going to get started here on we're going to get started here with our story as we go. I wanted to put this in there, Africanus, because it's something I want to touch on. All right. So let's go with what we're going to be talking about in this series. I'm going to blow this up to a slideshow, and we'll see if we can make sense of this. Let's throw this in the corner there, out of the way. All right. The Non-Binding Foundation presents a month of African history. And this is our timeline here. This is our journey. This is what we're going to be covering over the 4 Fridays in the month of February. Tonight's story is the Semitic origins of the term Africa. And don't worry about these icons. These icons have not been changed from when I downloaded this PowerPoint. So I haven't decided what I'm going to put in there. This is an organic document, and I'll be editing it along the way. So maybe we'll see different things in it. But tonight's lesson is about the Semitic origins of the term Africa, a compilation of contemporary resources denoting the etymologies and derivations of the term Africa. And I promise you it's going to be very interesting. Then the next week, we're going to be going into a millennium of Moorish heroes. And this is going to be going through time, and each one of these is its own separate timeline. All right, this is like the multiverse. Each one of these lessons deals with its own separate timeline. And I'll let you read the rest of the little description under each one of them. The third one is Daughters of My Dispersion. And that one's going to be really good for breaking down some of the biblical truth and going and pulling back some of those layers. And last but not least is Where Never Mankind Dwelt. And that's quoted directly from one of the books of the Apocrypha, Where Never Mankind Dwelt. And that's going to touch on the Bantu migration. And I'm hoping that with these 4 lessons, the burden of proof is on me to establish that the Hebrews of ancient Israel found their way into the African continent, and we, the people of African descent, are the remnant of those Hebrews. And that is the premise, and that is the burden of proof that I have to show you over the next month. Any questions so far? Anybody have anything to add or concerns, comments? Okay,
None.
well, if not, you got something for me?
Cain, again, the meaning of Ndiyabonga.
Ndiyabonga is Swahili, it means home.
Torah.
If you think about the word for house in English, you have house and you have home, right? Anybody can buy a house, but it takes love and commitment and affection and teamwork to build a home.
Okay.
So this idea of Ndiyabonga is home versus house, okay? Ndiyabonga takes work to build a home. Anybody can buy a house. Well, you know, a house can be empty and cold and unwelcoming, but a home is not. A home is something that you put work into to make it comfortable and nurturing. And so that's what Ndiyabonga Foundation is about, building that environment for people of African descent.
Torah.
So before we go into the heart of the lesson, there is one more thing that I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to do my best not to so much read every slide, because that's not how a presentation should go. You're all capable of reading on your own. But I do want to draw your attention to some very important parts of what I have here. All right. So somebody that is not a Hebrew Israelite, like I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Somebody on here or somebody listening one day might be a Muslim or a Christian, or somebody on here might be Nigerian or might be, you know, in all kinds of things that we get into or that we call ourselves. So you might wonder, well, why do we use Hebrew? And there's a very important reason why we use Hebrew. And this is one of the few slides that I'm going to read this part so that you guys, I make sure you get to every word. It says, why do we use Hebrew to conduct studies of etymology and the origin and use of words? Interestingly, we are not the first society to do so. After the kingdom of David was split into two following the reign of Solomon, into two kingdoms following the reign of Solomon, many different nations began to explore the writings of the Hebrews, namely Assyria, Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, and even later, the Greeks and the Romans. As these different people discovered information about themselves written within the sacred pages of the Tanakh, they undoubtedly found it to be appealing, or they developed an affinity to the texts. To this day, many historians, archaeologists, and linguists use Hebrew and Greek and Latin as the base or as the foundation for communicating and examining scientific research. So you might notice that a lot of our legal terms come from Latin, and a lot of our scientific terms come from Greek. And a lot of our epistemological terms come from Hebrew. And readers of the Quran, they read the Quran and they say, well, you know, like in the Bible, right? Readers of other religious texts, they tend to like to compare their religious text to the Bible. And so this to me shows a superiority or an affinity to the biblical text. Even when those religionists like Muslims might try and, you know, they might try and disprove the Bible, they do it with such passion that you have to wonder, well, you sound like you believe it, but you don't want to. You know, you sound like you wouldn't try to disprove it so passionately if you didn't believe it in the first place. So that is one of the reasons why we use Hebrew. Now, that is the slide, that is the information on the right of my screen. The information on the left of my screen is also something that I need to read so that we can get an understanding. So I'm going to read this as well. It says at the top, no more in their remembrance, why our name has been obscured from the historical record. African Americans have been called by many names in our long history in the world. I mean, you can just think of the names you've been called, from Bantu to Moors, to Blackfeet Indians, Seminole Indians, indigenous, whatever you want to call us, right? For the purposes of this study, we need to set the record straight. And what I mean by that is, I don't mind a person of African descent calling themselves an African. There's something, I have no problem with you saying that, or saying I'm an African Hebrew, or I'm a Black Jew. None of those names really set me off. You know what I'm saying? None of those names are untrue. But I do want you to understand that when we identify ourselves as African, African is 55 countries, over 4,000 tribes and languages, and it is a good umbrella term, but it is not a term of exacting definition. Because there's a whole lot of things that can be called African that are dissimilar to a substantial degree. So we have to define these things better. Also, when we say things like, well, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Jew, I don't have a problem with somebody of African descent saying that they're a Muslim or Christian or a Jew or any other religion, right? I don't want to bash religions, but I need us to draw this analogy. Here's the analogy. You take a word like Chinese, and you take a word like Muslim. Anybody can be a Muslim. All you have to do is believe on the tenets of Islam, do Shahada, and now you have converted into Islam. Now you are a Muslim. But you cannot convert to be Chinese. Let me give you another example. Anybody can be Hispanic, right? If you are considered Hispanic if you are born and living in any of the countries that were invaded and conquered and colonized by Spain or Portugal. Any of those countries, all of those people are Hispanic. There are people that are Hispanic there that are of African descent. There are people that are Hispanic there that are European. There are people that are Hispanic there that are Asian and Indian or Arabian. And there are people there that are Hispanic that are indigenous, Aztec, Maya, Inca, etc. So anybody can be Hispanic, but not everybody can be Mexican. So I draw that analogy just to establish that when I say to somebody that I am a Hebrew, Hebrew is not a religion like Islam or Christianity. Hebrew is an ethnic group. It is a nationality of people. And yes, we are a nationality of people without a nation, like somebody from Serbia or a Serbian, or somebody like a Tigrayan from Ethiopia or Eritrea, right? You can have a nationality or an ethnic group and not have your own country. So, and much the same way the Jewish people tried to make Judaism or being Jewish an ethnic group, Judaism is only a religion. So when you say that you're Jewish, you're talking about a religion because there are Russian Jews, there are Spanish Jews, there are German Jews, there are Polish Jews, French Jews, Moroccan Jews, Ethiopian Jews. So Jews, the term Jew is not an ethnic term, it is a religious term. Whereas the term Hebrew is an ethnic term and not a religious term. So my dad was a Muslim, and him being a Muslim and practicing the religion and facets of Islam do not stop him from also being Hebrew. He was a Hebrew who converted to the religion of Islam. My mother is a Christian. She is a Hebrew by ethnicity who practices the tenets of Christianity. She is both Christian and Hebrew, and also African, right? So those terms have to be put into the proper parameters. Otherwise, it becomes a confusion. And we're going to identify who Hebrews are, not in this lesson, but we will identify who the Hebrews are that we're talking about. But for all intents and purposes, I'm going to do my best to set the record straight and keep it straight throughout the nights that we're together. Okay? We are more than just Muslims and Christians and Jews. These religious terms do not denote a nationality, neither does the term African, which we will investigate today. There's one other point that I wanted to touch on that escapes me now, but I will come back to it when it comes back to me. All right? We're gonna push forward. So we are not just simply Muslims or Black or Christians or Africans. We have a nationality. We are Hebrews. And terms like Moor, terms like Bantu, terms like African, these are giant umbrella terms that do very little to distinguish between the different types of people that are called by these titles. But anyway, let's move forward. The Semitic origins of the term Africa and the etymology of how it evolved from the name Ephraim. So rather than beat around the bush for the whole time, I just decided, hey, once I get into the heart of the lesson, I'm just going to reveal where Africa comes from, and then I'm going to work my way back. So I'm going to show you the end from the beginning and then work my way back to connect the dots. All right. And you see here at the bottom where it says Ephraim, Ophran, and Africa. And hopefully, as we go along the way, you can start to see how these words, although they're spelled differently, they all have the same root, which is Ephraim. I'm talking slowly so that anybody who wants to read the text that I've written there can read it. And just keep in mind that a lot of these spellings, they have the same roots, but the spellings can vary drastically depending on if it is etymologically from a Latin-based language or a Slavic language or a Semitic language or Afro-Asiatic language, right? The different types, sub-Saharan or Sudanic language, the root is always the same, although the vowels and the arrangement might be slightly different. Also, if you know about the class we do every Tuesday, Glory to the Righteous study session, we understand that in some languages, you have what's called a construct state. you have the root word, and what you would do to the root word is you apply different prefixes and suffixes that change the state or change the perception or the idea around that word. And what we're going to learn as well is that Africa, right? The ka, the CA in Africa is a pronominal suffix that is attached to the root word Afri. And you're going to see how that all forms from the word Ephraim. Okay? So let's push forward. Any questions?
No.
All right. Joseph begot two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. We all maybe know the story of Jacob and his 12 sons, right? He had 4 wives. Leah and Rachel were sisters, and their handmaidens, Bilhah and Zilpah, were also sisters. And from these 4 women, he gave birth to 13 children, 12 sons and 1 daughter. And these 12 sons became the progenitors of large families that eventually turned into tribes. And we call these the 12 tribes of Israel. And no, this is not a picture of Joseph in Egypt. This is just an artist's rendering of what an Egyptian would have looked like. An artist's rendering of what an Egyptian would have looked like. And maybe one day I'll show you. I've done this exercise before where I went on Google and I Googled, an Ethiopian, right? And then I Googled somebody from Somalia. And I asked the question, if Ham, Noah's son Ham, if he had 4 sons, right? Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, Cush, which is Ethiopia, Phut, which is Libya, ancient Libya, and then Canaan, which would be the Canaanites. Now, we know the Hebrews lived in among the Canaanites for many years, but we don't really have any pictures or artifacts depicting the color of the Canaanites. We do, however, have a few images of the ancient Libyans or the people of Phut. And we have modern day pictures of people of Cush, Ethiopia, and people of Somalia or Sudan, right? Lower Egypt or really Upper Egypt, Patros, right? And so if you look at a Somalian, a Sudanic person, and a person from Ethiopia, if they're brothers, then you could assume that somebody from Phut and somebody from Canaan would also look dark-skinned like them. And if you take this picture of this guy here and you compare it to what a Sudanic person or a Sudanese person looks like, or somebody from Ethiopia, you're going to be, they're going to look just alike. So there's no way that the Egyptians, the people of Mitzrayim, there's no way for them to have been sandy colored, excuse me, when their brothers and their cousins were of a darker hue. In fact, the word Kemet, excuse me, the word Kemet comes from the Hebrew word Ham, or like Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? The word Kemet comes from the word Ham, which means black people. Ham in Hebrew means hot or burnt. I'm gonna get some water. Ham in Hebrew means hot and burnt. If you were to say you wanted some hot bread, you would say lacham ham. Or you want some hot coffee, cafe lacham, right? Hot coffee. So ham, I'm sorry, cafe ham, right? So this word ham comes from the Hebrew word Ham, which is the name of Noah's son, which means hot and burnt. It's funny that some of my Black Egyptologist brothers, they call themselves Semitic community, the Kemetic community, they love to debate Black Hebrews about being Black and what being Black is, and how the Hebrews were a white people or the Hebrews were European, and we're trying to emulate a European people. But at the same time, they are calling themselves the Kemetic community. I say, so well, so if we're imitating European culture, then why are you then using a European word to describe what you are? Because the word Kemetic comes from the word Kemet, and Kemet comes from the word Ham, and Ham is a Hebrew word.
Mm.
So by the very argument that they are using against Black Hebrews, they also indict themselves, which is very interesting. The 12 tribes of Israel were formed by one man, Jacob, who fathered 12 sons. This comes from the Bible. I talk about the chain of custody, right? God, we all know the story, right? Yah, or God, gave a promise to Abraham that Abraham would be the father of many nations. He says, no more will your name be called Abram. Now you will become Abraham, because you will become the father of many nations,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Abraham wants to pass this birthright on to Ishmael, but God tells him, no, you'll give it to Isaac. Isaac wants to pass the birthright on to Esau, but he doesn't understand that Jacob has bought the birthright from Esau, and Jacob went and stole it before it could be given away to the person that he bought it from. Jacob then, in Genesis chapter 48, Jacob passes the birthright of Abraham, which was the promise of being many nations, a multitude of people. He passes this birthright promise on to Joseph, his favorite son, Joseph. But rather than giving it to Joseph, he passes it through Joseph to Joseph's son, Ephraim. And it's important that we understand the chain of custody in this story, because Abraham wanted to give the blessing to his oldest, but he ended up giving it to his younger, because Isaac was younger than Ishmael. Isaac wanted to give the birthright to his oldest, Esau, but he ended up passing it to his youngest, Jacob. Jacob then gives the birthright to his son, Joseph, right, who was the youngest of all the sons, saving, of course, Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jacob gives the birthright to Ephraim, who was the younger of Joseph's two sons. So there's a pattern in all of that. You understand? Also, Sarah was barren. You understand? Rebecca was barren. Rachel was also barren.
Mm.
So there's a pattern in the way the Most High does this. And we have to recognize that pattern. We have to understand what see, a lot of Hebrews get caught up in, or even Jewish people, right? My European Jewish people, they get caught up in Judah. But guess what? Name a scripture where Judah received the birthright. Oh, wait, right? Judah never received the birthright. The birthright was given to Ephraim. It says here in Genesis 46, and unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim. which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. Ephraim. The birthright was given to Ephraim. Ephraim in Hebrew means fruitful. It's a plural word, like mayim, right? It's fruitful.
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide here. Coat of many colors. We talked about slowing down and looking at the Bible story through and through without injecting or interjecting our own biases into it. And so many Hebrews, so many Jewish people, so many people who believe in this idea of Judah, they overlooked the fact that Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. Joseph was the one that Jacob had always intended to get the birthright. That's why he grieved so much when he thought Joseph was dead. That's why he gave Joseph the coat of many colors. What do those colors symbolize? The many different nations that would come of him. What was the vision he had where he said he had a dream and then there was 11 stars that came down and worshiped before him? And then there was another dream where the 11 stalks of wheat bowed down and worshiped him, right? He was elevated above his brothers. And of course, they didn't like that. The blessing of Abraham was such that he would be the father of many nations, according to the Bible. Joseph, the son of Jacob, was given a coat of many colors and received several dreams and visions which prophesied that he would inherit the Abrahamic blessing. Here it is right here in Genesis 48:19. And his father refused. This is Jacob is blessing Joseph's two children, Manasseh the elder and Ephraim the younger. And he says, and so Jacob was putting his right hand over Ephraim and his left hand over Manasseh. And Joseph didn't like that because Joseph wanted him to bless his elder son, which was the tradition. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son. I know it. I know that Manasseh is older than Ephraim. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed, which is Ephraim, his seed shall become a multitude of nations.
Mm.
And I want to stop there and I want you to think about his seed, the seed of Ephraim shall become a multitude of nations. And then you consider that all of the Bantu tribes in Africa emanate from Ephraim.
Mm. For instance,
Does that fulfill the prophecy?
sounds like it does.
I also want you to consider that when the Bantu, and we'll get into this in a later lesson, but let me just give you a little caveat. When the Bantu tribes reached, before they were called Bantu, well, let me back up even a little bit, one step further. The word Bantu is a derogatory term that was given to the people of the Niger-Congo region by a European German Jewish historian named Wilhelm Bleek. Wilhelm Bleek created the term Bantu from the South African Zulu language, Ba meaning many and Nutu meaning people, Ba Nutu meaning many people. And that term did not come into existence until the 1850s. So prior to 1850, what were these Bantu people called? That's what we're going to talk about in the preceding, in the following lessons. But these people that we now today know as Bantu, all of these different people, and then the Bantu migration spread across the entire continent. And now there's thousands of different sub-tribes that are considered Bantu tribes, all throughout East Africa, all throughout Central and South Africa, and West Africa. All of these Bantu tribes, these are the children of Ephraim, the many thousands of Ephraim. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim. Also keep in mind that when the people that we now know of as Bantu, that's me trying to disseminate these myths and pull back the layers of the onion. These people that we now know of as Bantu, when they started, where they started was in the Niger Congo region of West Africa. And if you also look in the Niger Congo region of West Africa, you'll find things like the Kingdom of Judah. And you'll find terms like Wida, Widdah, Wida, right? You'll also find that this is the slave coast where they came to get slaves. So everybody in the Western Hemisphere who is a descendant of transatlantic slavery, we are all also related to the Bantu people because those were the people that was the stock that we were taken from. Lastly, the name that we get, Negro, or the Nigger word, that comes from the Niger River, which was the river of the Niger Congo area. So we all of African descent, we are all Bantu, and we are all also Negro or Niger. And just to hit every corner of this conversation, there are indigenous Semitic African tribes that these Bantu people encountered along the migration. But what happens with a lot of those indigenous Semitic African tribes that we encountered, one of two things happened. We either went to war with them and pushed them out, or we intermarried and assimilated them into extinction. Because we as Hebrews, we had a special quirk that made us a very difficult people to rule over. Does anybody know what that special nuance was that made us very hard to get along with?
No. What was it?
One of the things the Romans hated about us was that we have a law in our Torah which says that no one not of our own kind can rule over us.
Hmm.
No one not of our own kind can give the law, can administer the law, can worship our God over us. You know, they can worship our God as a sojourner, you know, but there's a, can I just show you? I'm gonna show you.
Okay, please.
I'm gonna show you. Let's go back to the Bible. I want to show you. Okay, so we're gonna go to let's go to, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to keep that up for now. Let's open a new tab. And we're gonna go to Exodus chapter 12. Might be chapter 20. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20. All right. This is the Ten Commandments. And it's never, nowhere in the scripture is it ever called the Ten Commandments. All right. So I'm gonna not say 10 Commandments. All right, because it's way more than 10. All right, so look what he says here. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. And here's the kicker right here on my screen here. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, not thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter,
Mm.
nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, and here's the kicker, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. Now, I mean, I'm telling you, man, we gotta stop. I'm an English teacher. We gotta stop blowing past the punctuation. So I tell my students, hold on, you're reading too fast, bro. Don't skip out on them periods and commas. They mean something. Right? Nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. When wherever we went as Hebrews, we didn't just do what the other people did. We didn't do the whole when in Rome, do as the Romans thing. Wherever we went, we transformed the earth and the environment to how we wanted it to be. So you've seen like these TV shows where this one European might go into this village in Africa and he wants to live among the tribes people, and maybe they drink blood, or maybe they eat monkey meat, or they eat raw meat. And because he's there amongst the tribes people, when they offer him the food, he eats the food. And he thinks it's an insult to them to not accept what they offer him. Hebrews weren't doing that. That was not something we could do. Hebrews would go into a new place, maybe and encounter a new tribe of people. And if we are set on living in that place, then y'all got to cut out all that stuff that y'all are doing within our gates. Now, whatever you do on your own, you can do on your own. But if you come into our portion of the land that we've taken over, that we've conquered, we are going to hold you to our laws. And that was very important to understand about the Hebrews. You know, so when the Romans came into Jerusalem, I found it very hard to rule over the Hebrews, because they have this thing that nobody that's not of our kind can rule over us. And there was rebellions, and it was a tumultuous time in Rome in those days because the Hebrews were very hard to rule over. That's why the Caesar, what was his name? That's why I'm drawing a blank now, but I can't remember his name. The one who
Julius Augustus,
Pilate?
What's his name? You said it.
Pilate?
Pilot, the other one I heard.
Oh,
Julius or Augustus.
Augustus, what's his name? God. The Pharaoh, the guy who was there when the Hebrews
was
Not
it Barabbas?
no,
Barabbas?
Vespasian.
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 Yeah,
All right.
Vespasian.
Okay.
Vespasian was the emperor of Rome from 69 to 79. He was the one that overthrew the Hebrew state in Jerusalem. Vespasian. He was so sick of the Hebrews. And see, Rome, the empire of Rome, needed the land of Israel because Rome had a large army, and they had to feed that army. And all of that food was coming out of the land of the Fertile Crescent, which is where Israel is, the Middle East. So he needed that land, but he didn't like all the trouble that came with them Hebrews. And that's why in 70 AD, he finally what? Overthrew the Hebrew state.
And I got a question here.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You refer to it as the Middle East. But during that time, that Suez Canal had not divided it. So
Right.
where are you staying in particular? This is,
I'm talking about Israel, right there where Israel is today. Jordan, I mean, modern day Israel, modern day Jordan,
Mhm.
between the Nile and the Euphrates valleys, that area of the Levant.
all right.
Now, the reason why it's called the Middle East is because if you look at England as the center of the world, then you travel all the way to China. China would be the Far East. If you
Okay.
take your ruler from one end of the ruler onto England, the other end of the ruler on the sea in China, and you cut it right in half, you're going to land right there in the middle.
All right.
That's why it's called the Middle East. But Vespasian was the one who overthrew the state of the Hebrew state. And the reason why he overthrew it was because the Hebrews were very hard to rule over. And the reason why the Hebrews were so hard to rule over was because wherever we went, we would transform the environment.
Mhm.
You know, I was talking with my wife one day about this, and I was just telling her, there were certain aspects of Hebrew culture that were just taboo, right? Like, for instance, the Hebrews did not breastfeed their babies out in public. You weren't going to just sit there in an open in a public area and whip out the baby feeder and feed the baby.
Mhm.
It was something that was done discreetly, and it wasn't done discreetly because it was a shameful thing. It was done discreetly because women had to dress modestly in public.
Mhm.
So you could imagine these Hebrews encountering some of these African tribes, these
Mhm.
indigenous Semitic African tribes in Africa as they're spreading throughout the continent, and seeing these tribes eating monkeys or drinking the blood of animals or eating things or doing things that were not like tribal scarring, or like we weren't gonna, the Hebrews were not going to allow that kind of stuff in their midst because it went against our culture.
Mhm.
And that's why it says here, it says, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord. In it thou shalt do no work, not thou, not thy son, not thy daughter, not thy manservant or maidservant, not thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. Let me show you one more. Let me show you one more. Let me show you one more proof of that. It says, let me see. I'm trying to find it. Where am I looking at? All the people heard thunderings, blah blah blah. I kind of lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me. But just to reiterate, we did not conform to the customs of the people around us. We changed them to conform to our customs because a holy convocation, that's what I want to see. Holy convo. Oh, I know where it is. Leviticus chapter 23. One more example that we can move forward. So watch this. Laws and religious festivals. Now you can imagine Hebrews in Africa amongst indigenous Semitic Africans worshiping all kind of gods and deities and doing all kind of pagan practices, right? And this was probably very strange. Some of these were really strange to Hebrews. And why are they doing that? That's weird. Cutting themselves, tribal scarring, circumcising the girls, breaking out the bottom row of their teeth, or putting those things in their lips to make their lips grow real big. These things are probably very bizarre to the Hebrews. Look what it says here. Yeah. So these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the month, at even, is the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is a feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. So 3 times he says convocation. Convocation in verse 4, convocation in verse 7, and convocation in verse 8. So the question I have is, what does the word convocation mean? So let's look. Convocation right here is mikra. Let's expand it. Mikra. Mikra. All right. That word appears in verse 2, in verse 4, verse 7 and 8, right? It appears a lot of different places. 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 21, and convocation. So let's see what this word means. Convocation is a total of 23 times, mikra, 23 times. It means to convocate, assemblies, calling, reading, right? Calling together. But it's from this root word here, kara, right? Kara. Look what kara means. Call, to call out, to recite, to read, to cry out, to proclaim, to utter a sound, to appoint, right? To proclaim, to be called, to be summoned. This word does not mean to come together, right? A convocation first of all, convocation is an English word, correct?
Okay.
Convocation is an English word, right? A calling together, a sacred assembly, right? To convoke or to read. So here's where the word comes into real public meeting, right? Or the act, the persons, or the public place, right? So what he's saying in this verse, he's talking about convocating or coming together. The Roman Catholic Church has injected this word convocation in there instead of the word that it really would describe what mikra is saying. And the reason why the Roman Catholic Church has put this word convocating, because the root word of convocate is to convene, which means to come together. And the Roman Catholic Church was a financial institution. And if they could not get people to come to the church, they could not solicit the people for alms and tithes and offerings. So the translator of this verse put the word convene or convocate in there because it was designed to make people think that you had to go to church in order to satisfy this requirement. But the word mikra doesn't mean to come together. The word mikra means to call out, right? And what are you doing when you're calling out? What you're doing is you're making this a federal holiday or a public holiday. Right? This goes back to what we were reading in Exodus chapter 20. He says, you shall not do no work, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ass or your donkey, and neither can the person that is a stranger within your gates. So when he says that the feast of Passover was to be called out, to be mikra, he was saying that anybody within your borders had to do the same thing. You weren't allowed to be in amongst the Hebrews on the Passover trying to open up your business. We're going to shut you down this day. You weren't allowed to be in amongst the Hebrews and have a shop where you did tribal scarring or any of the crazy stuff that these other indigenous tribes are doing. We're going to shut you down. We're going to run you out of here. And so this language was twisted by the Roman Catholic Church to get people to come to church so they could solicit money from them. And if you ever go to Israel or you go to places like Saudi Arabia, what happens in Saudi Arabia 5 times a day? They start the prayer, they call out for prayer, Allahu Akbar, right? And everybody 5 times a day doing the salat 5 times a day. The entire country comes to a stop for prayer. And I don't care if you are Saudi Arabian, I don't care if you are Muslim, I don't care if you are homosexual. When you're in those places, you have to do exactly what they're doing, or you're going to be in trouble. And that was the same type of terraforming that the Hebrews did when we went into the other places in Africa. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And this word mikra has been misinterpreted and mistranslated to mean convocation, which means to come in, right? Convocation means to come in. Convocation, the meaning of convocation means to assemble, right? The act of calling people together, right? So you're still calling, but you're not calling the people to gather. What you're doing is you're calling out to the people to make sure that everyone within your gates is doing the same thing. And that is the true meaning of the word mikra. It doesn't mean to come together as an assembly. It means to call out, to have 100% compliance. All right, we're getting to the end of this lesson here. I'm gonna just jump back in here and finish this off, this last few slides. So his father refused and said that his son Ephraim shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. That was that coat of many colors. That was the whole illusion of the sheaves, right? That's why Joseph's symbol was the sheaves. Judah's symbol was the lion. Zebulun's symbol was the ships, right? Simeon's logo or emblem was the gates of Shechem, where they went in there and killed all those people. Dan's emblem was the balancing scales, because Da'an means the judge. Da'an means to measure or to judge, to weigh, right? So Ephraim's symbol was always the sheaves, because he was going to be fruitful. It's also where the word ephod comes from. They even used the name Ephraim in the word ephod, which was a way of weighing or measuring an ephod of grain. Comes from the word Ephraim because it means fruitful. So all of this is all interwoven. It's all connected. So what does Ephraim mean in Hebrew? Ephraim, fruitful, fertile, and productive. Ephraim is a masculine given name of Hebrew and Aramaic origin, first adopted by the Israelite patriarch of the name. In modern English, the language is In modern English language, it is typically pronounced as Ephraim, right? In Hebrew, it means fruitful, fertile, and productive. Let's go on. Look at the etymology. The transliterations of Ephraim. Now, the transliterations means how was this word represented in other languages and other tongues? So let's look at some of these. You have Ephraim, you have Ephrathite. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 12, or chapter 12, verse 17. I'm kind of backwards right now. David was called an Ephrathite. He is the son of Jesse, that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, right? And we know that the descendants of Bethlehem were all Ephraimites. Why were they all Ephraimites? Because Rachel, the mother of Joseph, the grandmother of Ephraim, she died in She died in Bethlehem, giving birth to Benjamin. And so when Joshua, son of Nun, the author of the book of Joshua, he was also an Ephraimite. When he started giving the land to the children of Israel, he gave to Ephraim the land where their mother Rachel was buried.
Okay.
So so David was from Bethlehem, Judah. And that's why they call it Bethlehem, Judah, because it was Bethlehem in Judah. It was Bethlehem in the territory of Judah. But it was the city of Bethlehem was inhabited by the descendants of Ephraim, because that's where their grandmother Rachel died. All right, you have Epher. You have Epher. Look how the PH turns to an F.
Mhm.
And that R is still there. Then you have Epher and Apher, right? The Romans used Apher, and then that became Afri. See how that word's changed?
Okay.
Then you have Ephraim, Ophrin, Ophrin, Opper, Afar. These are all transliterations of the word Ephraim. The Latin adjectives for people and national identities. I'm gonna read this slide. It says in Latin, a group of people or a person would be identified based on their country's name or their tribal ethnic name. Latin can be a little confusing in this regard, as it has too many suffixes. I talked about how the root word, you attach things to it at the beginning and the end to change the meaning, right? Latin has a lot of these different suffixes and prefixes that you can add to it to change it. And here are some of those suffixes. You have nous, right? Like Scipio. Let me show you. Like this guy here, Scipio Africanus. Scipio Africanus. He was the one who conquered, who defeated Hannibal, the king of Carthage, right? In the Third Punic Wars. Punic comes from the word Phoenicia, right? Which we're going to talk about in a later. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just want to. It's a lot of dots to connect. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to throw it all out there right now. So you have nous, you have na, you have us and like Italus, right? You have Ennis, right? You have Anus, Anius, right? Diana, right? Italiana, Italianus. And you have Cus. Spartacus was a Spartan. And you have Ka, Spartica, right? So the word Africa comes from, the transliteration of Ephraim by combining the word Afri and the Roman suffix ka, Afrika, the people of Afri, or the people of Ephraim. This is what the Romans called the people living on the continent. They called them Africa or Africanus. And this Roman general, Scipio Africanus, they gave him the name the African because he was one who defeated Carthage. Now remember, Carthage, the capital city of Carthage was a city named Cyrene. Cyrene, Cyrene. Who is the most famous Cyrenian that we know of?
Oh.
Simon of Cyrene, who everybody acknowledges was black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who helped Yeshua carry his cross. Why was this Jew, this Hebrew of Ephraimite stock who lived in Carthage, why was he in Jerusalem to witness the crucifixion of Yeshua
Uh-huh.
during those days? Because it happened during Passover, and he was following the Hebrew law, which says all of your males 20 years old and older who are able-bodied must report to Jerusalem to keep the Passover.
Mm.
All right, let's see what else we have here. Might be one more. Epher is the root of Africa. In classical history, the historian Flavius Josephus asserted that the descendants of Abraham named Epher poured into the region of North Africa, invading Libya. This is Carthage. This is where Carthage is. Invading Libya and gave it their own name, Afar. Josephus quoted from the writings of another early Hebrew historian named Cleomedes. And that's his Greek name, but he also had another name, like it was a Hebrew name, Malahk, something like that, who claimed that the descendants of Ephraim had invaded Libya. Josephus and Cleomedes are two primary witnesses confirming that Ephraim's name was the etymological root of the continent named Africa. And here is the proof of that in Flavius Josephus's own writings. He says, is related to this offering, that's the word Ephraim, that made war against Libya and took it, and that his grandchildren, when they inhabited it, called it from his name Africa. And indeed, Alexander Polyhistor gives his attestation to what I hear say, who speaks thus. Cleomedes, the prophet, who was also called Malchus, there you go, his name was Malchus, wrote a history of the Jews in agreement with the history of Moses, meaning Cleomedes' writings agreed with the history that was given in the law of Moses. Their legislator, that there were many sons born to Abraham by Keturah. He names three of them, Aphor and Surim and Japhran. And that from Surim was the land of Assyria denominated, and that from the other two, Aphor and Jabran, the country Africa took its name. So there are some historical proofs that Africa gets its name from Ephraim. Let's see what else we have here, and then we'll close this out. Okay, so that's all I have for the slide for the origins of the Semitic origins of the name or the term Africa. And I have some other receipts here that I want to just click on real quick to show you. So first we have, this is from Flavius Josephus. This is where I just showed you, all right? Starting at 38, all right? The sons of grandson of Abraham, when they inhabited it, they called it by its name Africa. Here's where this comes from, is here. This is from the Jewish Virtual Library. Here is the name Ephraim again, Ephraim, right? Ephraim can be spelled either way. This is all just transliterations. It says, according to the Judo-African tradition, Afran is regarded as the first site of Jewish settlement in Morocco. Many legends have been created about this, et cetera, et cetera. The Jews of this kingdom are said to have belonged to the tribe of Ephraim. The Jews of this kingdom, and this is not my writing, this is from the Jewish Virtual Library. Even the Jews, even the European Jews have to admit that this was the tribe, that Africa was named after the tribes of Ephraim, after the family of Ephraim. Look what it says. Ancient community of Afran, whose first members are said to have arrived from Eretz Israel before the destruction of the first temple. Many legends, I'm gonna read it. Many legends have been created about the ancient community of Afran, whose members are said to have arrived from Eretz Israel before the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. The first temple was Solomon's temple, which was destroyed. This is after the tribes had split and Yah had put away the northern kingdom of Israel. The northern kingdom of Israel's primary tribe was Ephraim. So these are Ephraimites, and these Ephraimites went into Africa and established a kingdom. They're calling it a Jewish kingdom because the Jews are taking credit for it being their religion. But we understand that this word Jew should be Hebrew. A Hebrew kingdom was set up there, which was governed by the Afriat family, then named Ephrati. The Jews of this kingdom of Ephrati or Afriat are said to have belonged to the tribe of Ephraim, one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. That's a receipt. That's from the Jewish Virtual Library. All right. We have Numbers, that was the raising of the ark. We have Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 10. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia or Cush, which is Ethiopia, my suppliant, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring my offering. This is the daughter of my dispersed. That's one of the chapters we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Deuteronomy, chapter 33, verse 17. On talking about Ephraim. Look at this. Talking about Joseph or Ephraim, right? Verse 17. Ephraim's glory is the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. We're going to scatter the children of Ephraim to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim. And they are the thousands of Manasseh. Side note, this language is repeated again when he talks about Saul and David. He says Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s. And the same way that this language is used over and over again, and this pattern is used over and over again, if this 10,000s and thousands applies to Ephraim, then when they use it again for David, it must also apply to Ephraim as well. Because Yah would not, he is not the author of confusion. I'm not going to set a pattern in one tribe and then use that pattern to denote another tribe, because that's going to create a confusion. So if he says the 10,000s of Ephraim, and he says David his 10,000, he's using that same language because David and the tribe of Ephraim have something in common. And that's why he also called him that Ephrath, that guy from Ephraim. All right, one more verse here. I believe it was here, Isaiah 27:13. And it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria. That's the northern kingdom of Israel, whose premier tribe was Ephraim, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt. Remember, he cast Ephraim out. He cast away the northern kingdom. So he's talking about the same people. They were the ones that were ready to perish in Assyria, and they were the outcasts. And shall worship the Lord in the holy mountain at Jerusalem. Just showing you that that the tribe of Ephraim were in Egypt and beyond in these days. A lot of these All right, look at here. It says in verse 12, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. What is the stream of Egypt? That's talking about the Nile River. And it shall be gathered and ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. Where are they being gathered from? Egypt. Egypt, by the river of Egypt. My wife is from Kenya, and in Kenya, they have three ethnic groups. They have Cushites, they have Bantu, and they have Nilotes. Nilote means from the Nile River. So a lot of these Hebrews, when they were leaving out of Egypt and out of Israel during the days of Vespasian, what did they do? They ran places they were familiar with. So they ran down the banks of the Nile River and deeper into the continent of Africa. By the time they got to Kenya and Ethiopia, now we call them Nilotes. So even the Nilote or the Nilotic people of Kenya are Hebrews. And I often ask my wife, I say, where does the word Luo come from? Where does the word Kikuyu come from? Who created those words for these different tribes? Who gave all these different tribes these names? Like Kisi and Zulu and Xhosa and all these different names that these Bantu tribes come from or that they use. Who created all these names? Why is there such a confusion? That course that goes into Psalms 83, right? They have created a confusion, a tumult, saying, let us wipe out the name of Israel from their remembrance. All of these different names are to keep us from remembering who we are. That is why the title of this one was what? Why our name has been obscured from history. All right, a few more receipts, then we're going to call it. This is Second Esdras chapter 13, I believe, in verse 42. This talks about how these Israelites these are the 10 tribes. Remember how this one here says, these are the 10 lost tribes of Israel that were Ephraim. Here we have those 10 tribes entered, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the times of Hosea the king, who Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, we talked about Assyria in Isaiah, right? They were in Assyria, whom the king of Assyria led away captive. He carried them over the waters, and they came to another land. But they took counsel amongst themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Look at this. Where never mankind dwelt. Look at this. Where never mankind dwelt. Oh, we're going to talk about it. We are going to break it down. We're going to talk about how they were dispersed. We're going to talk about where never mankind dwelt. We're going to break it all down so that we leave no doubt as to who the children of Israel are in these days. All right? And they entered the Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river. They showed them signs. They passed over. For through that country, there was a great way to go. What do you mean there was a great way to go? Through what country? They were crossing the continent. They're crossing the entire African Sahara Desert, getting to the place where they become Niger or Negro, right there in the Niger Congo, right there where they say the Bantu migration started. The Bantu migration started in the Niger Congo region, starting in 500 BC, 500 years before Christ. The northern kingdom of Israel fell in 750 or 720 BC. So when it says, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm gonna show you. It says, for through that country was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. This is talking about a century and a half. You take 500, you add a century, that's 600, you add another half years, that's 650. This is when they left out of Assyria and started traveling across the Sahara to get to the Niger Congo area where And guess what? When they got here, it says what? They dwelt there for until the latter time. And now when they shall become, right? So that's that. Now, believe it or not, I have some more receipts that we're gonna talk about. I have an ancient book here. The name of the book is called Loba Gola, an African savage's own words. And out of the chapter that we're gonna read, it is called chapter 5, page 42. Look what it says. Black Jews of the Ondo Bush.
Okay.
Then we're gonna go to it. We're gonna go a little further, right? Now watch this. And I'm gonna go back to my little PowerPoint here. Like, watch this. It says the Millennium of Moorish Heroes. Chapter 5 of this book is the Black Jews of the Ondo Bush. Look what chapter 9 is. Chapter 8, the Naked Black Moor in Scotland. So the Black Moors in Scotland. Well, we're gonna connect all these dots. We're gonna connect all these dots. Let's see if I have any more receipts to show you. Oh, I can't even get into this. Iberian Jews of Yoruba nationality, the Benai Ephraim, children of Ephraim from Nigeria, live among the Yoruba nationalities. If you know anything about the word Yoruba, Yoruba comes from the word Jeroboam. The root words are the same, Yoruba and Jeroboam. When I did my DNA said that I was Moorish, said that I was Spanish, and that I had Yoruba in me. And we understand that Yoruba means Jeroboam. There was no J in Hebrew, so Jeroboam would have been Jeroboam. All right, their oral history tells that Benai Ephraim, the children of Ephraim, came from Morocco, right? We talked about Morocco here. It's Morocco's winter, right? Came from Morocco. After the Jews were banished from the Iberian Peninsula during the Spanish Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition was the king of Portugal was trying to marry the queen of Spain or something like that, and he didn't want to marry her until she expelled all the black Moors, the black Hebrew Moors, out of his country. They are known by the Yoruba people as Imo Yakwain, or the strange people. Unlike other African Israelite communities in Nigeria, the Bani Ephraim have the Torah, portions of which they keep in their sanctuaries. All right, thousands of black refugee Jews of Spain resettled in Lagos and Port Novo, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, and Sao Tome, either as slaves or outlaws. Some eventually made it deeper inland and became assimilated into one of the nationalities or another. All right, this set of Moorish refugees, look what it says here, are not to be confused with the more ancient Hebrew and Canaanite tribes that had been living in Niger area and other African countries for thousands of years. The Benai Ephraim did not settle with the Yoruba, the Jeroboams, by accident or chance. They had recalled that a body of their people had departed Canaan in the ancient times, during the times of Asaroth, that I showed you here in 2nd Esdras, where they left Assyria, and had settled in present-day Yoruba areas of Nigeria. So when it happened that they had to leave Spain in a hurry to protect their lives and freedom, those Moorish Iberian Jews or Hebrews sailed on their network of ships to Nigeria, the Niger-Congo area, near Lagos, amongst the Yorubas, the people of Jeroboam, their relation by blood, their greater nationality. I can't make this up. We are descendant of these people because this is where they came to get the slaves.
That's a lot of history here. Wow.
And it's a lot of things, man. It's a lot to peel back, it's a lot of layers.
How did
Now,
they get to Spain?
how did they get to Spain?
Yeah.
So this history is the the easiest way for me to tell you this is the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And let me show you real quick why I say the Roman Empire. Roman Empire. Right? Watch this. The Roman Empire was a unique empire in that it circled the entire Mediterranean Sea.
Mm.
You understand?
Ah.
And so here, let's see if it'll pull it up. I agree. Okay. Let's see if we can find it. I wanted to pull it up where we can see it. Is it? Come on. Not, we're just gonna go back. All right. So let's just zoom in like this. All right. So the Roman Empire encircled the entire Mediterranean Sea.
Mhm.
Now, this here is where my cursor is. This is North Africa. You can see Cyrenia or Cyrenaica, right? This
Yes.
is Carthage. Remember, the capital city of Carthage was Cyrene. This is where Simon of Cyrene came from, who carried the cross for Jesus. There's Judea, right? There's Syria. There's Assyria way over here. This is where they were growing all the food to feed their armies. So there's this guy in the Bible named Cornelius. And
Mhm.
Cornelius was called, it says Cornelius of the Italian band. Cornelius was living in Italy. He was a Hebrew who was a citizen of Rome, who was living in other parts of the world, of the Roman world. And there were Hebrews all over the place. You read in the New Testament, the 7 churches. You had, look here, Galatia, Cappadocia, right? You had I can't find it. You had Ephesus,
Mhm.
you had Thessalonica,
Mhm.
you had Philippi, right? You had Romans. There were Hebrew Israelites living in Rome. They were called Romans.
Okay.
Those letters to the 7 churches, those
Mhm.
letters were written to Hebrews, people of Hebrew ethnicity, who were citizens of Rome, who were living in other parts of the Roman Empire, like Cyrene. So how did those Hebrews get there? Some of them were sold into slavery in different parts of Europe. Some of them fled there when they sacked Jerusalem or they fled south, and some migrated there on their own over the course of the Roman Empire.
Oh.
Okay.
No. Somebody had a question?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that's just some more that we have to, we could talk about, right? I'm not even gonna go into this book here. I mean, I was gonna go into From
Mhm.
Babylon to Timbuktu, Dr. Rudolph Windsor. He breaks down a lot of these things. If you don't have this book, if you go onto the internet and just type in From Babylon to Timbuktu PDF, it's free on the internet. And there's several people on YouTube that are actually reading the book orally on YouTube. You can watch it or you can listen to it or read it. But this is a very good book, and it has a lot of receipts in there. He's done a lot of research on the Black Hebrews and proving that we are in Africa all over the place. So it's a lot of history that we can go over. A lot more that I could say, but I think I'm gonna leave it there at that. We're coming up on the 2 hour mark, and I don't want to go too far beyond that. I know everybody's not in the same time zone as me, but
Mhm.
we do want to establish that um, the word Africa comes from the name of a Hebrew named Ephraim. And all of the people of the Bantu and Negro stock are Ephraimites. We're not Judeans, we are Ephraimites. We are not from the tribe of Judah. We are from the tribe of Ephraim.
Mhm. Okay.
Questions? Anybody have any questions that you just have to get out? I mean, I'm here all night. Just let me know what you have a question about.
Okay, Sleeka, this is Verdell. I wanted to know what was the name of that book again? The other book you was talking about, the first book, the old ancient African book.
Okay. I'm gonna turn on my camera.
Mhm.
Can you see me?
King.
I can't see myself. Hold on. Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. So there. I ain't the prettiest face, but this is the name of that book.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Oops, it flipped that way.
Is it inverted?
I can't see it now. I don't see it.
Oh, you don't see it?
Okay,
There.
now let me see. Okay, let me see. Oh shoot, I'm trying to. Oh wow, give me a second.
I
Is
can't
it?
see
Is
it.
it?
Do you still see it, Nala?
No, it's gone.
It went away.
No.
Just
It, it,
your
I
name
know
is
it
on.
started with the L. It started with the L-O. Was it G? I was trying to write the name of the book down.
Yeah.
If you could just
Let me spell it for you. It is spelled Lobagola.
G-A. Mm-hmm.
Larry, Oscar, Betty,
Oh, that was
Angel,
it. Oh.
Larry, Oscar, Betty,
Mm-hmm.
Angel, Gary, Oscar, Larry, Angel. L-O-B as in boy, A, G as in goat, O-L-A.
Okay.
Loba Gola.
Lobagola.
Loba
Okay.
Gola. An African savage's own story.
African savages. Okay.
It says here, this is the autobiography of Bata Kendai Amgoza Ivan Lobagola, a Black Jew descended from the lost tribes of Israel, a savage who came out of the African bush into modern civilization and thenceforth found himself an alien among his own people and a stranger in the 20th century world.
Mm.
Okay. Toda.
This book is ancient. This thing is like it's a hardback, but it's cloth.
Does it show when it was copyrighted or anything? Does it have any dates like that? Since you said
Yeah,
it
let
was
me see.
ancient.
Let me see. This book was published on March 30th. No, I'm sorry. Copyright 1929.
1929. Okay.
Published in March of 1930.
Okay. Wow. All right. Thank you. They probably didn't have no IBSN numbers back then. I know.
They,
You know how to
I can give you the ISBN if I can find it.
a lot of times you can put that in Google and it'll pull up the book.
Yeah, sometimes it will. I don't see it right just immediately, but it goes to the
That's
back.
okay.
I don't see it.
Okay, that's okay. I'll look for it under. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very old book. I have to protect it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all from me, folks. I'm here for questions if you have any questions, and I definitely will make this PowerPoint available, I mean the video of the
Okay.
PowerPoint and presentation available on YouTube in a minute. But
Okay, good.
All right. So, brother, you're going to be presenting each week at the same time for the month of February.
The next one is going to be on next Friday. I don't know the date yet. It might be the 9th, maybe February
The
9th.
night. Oh,
We're going to be doing
Okay.
the
a
night.
millennium of Moorish heroes.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
And this will
So-
kind of help you with the whole understanding of where we came from prior to 1492.
Okay. Okay.
Mm,
So the
boy.
same Zoom link and password?
I'm not sure how to use Zoom like that, but I will definitely send out a link.
Okay.
Toda.
I would
Hold on.
definitely send out a link.
So now you'll make sure I'm in the loop.
Yes,
Okay.
I can post my email on here. Do you have my email? Are you in the WhatsApp group by chance?
I'm not. I think I came to one of the Hebrew classes a couple of weeks ago. I was invited by Nalo.
Akoti,
Yes.
if you send your email address to Abigail and let her know that you want to be put in the WhatsApp group, then she'll set that up for you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'm on here. I can do that.
Toda.
Okay. Shalom, shalom.
Okay. Toda Roba.
Hold on.
Okay. Logistical thing. Okay, so if not, I like to say just that I appreciate everyone for coming on the call. I know you could have been anywhere and you spent 2 hours listening to me talk craziness, and I do appreciate it.
It wasn't crazy. It was good
Yeah,
learning.
informative. Thank you,
It's
Toda.
It
definitely.
was.
We appreciate
Appreciate
that.
taking the time.
That's right.
Would you be able to close maybe next week or open next week with Bawo, the song?
Yeah, absolutely.
Toda.
Yeah, I played it this week. I played it tonight too. I don't know if you were on or not.
Okay, now I'll listen till it goes off.
Yeah, I played it tonight too, but I'll play it some more.
Was
That's
that the first song?
first song, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I like that. The African
Yeah.
song. Yep.
It's right here. Bawo, Ndiyabonga, which is
Ndiyabonga.
yeah, thank you, Father. Father, we thank you.
Father, we thank you. Oh, I didn't
It's-
hear. I was late.
What
Father,
language is that?
This is Zulu.
Zulu. Okay.
thank you.
It's a Bantu language, so it's a lot of it's similar to Abba.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I commend you to God and the words of His grace, which are able to build you up and give you an inheritance among all of those who are sanctified.
Mhm.
Tuva Yehovah, Bravo Afe, Israel. Hallelujah.
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 Salah. Hey, Lala Toe. Oh, you're
You gonna
playing the
play it?
song?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'll listen to that.
Have a good evening.
Salam Kabbalah.
I'll see you ladies on next Shabbat.
Toda Rabah.
Toda
Yeah.
Rabah, Toda Rabah,
Toda Rabah.
Lala Tov,
Lala Tov.
Lala
Tov.
Toda.
Tov.